What if one of Missouri's greatest ancient mysteries has been hiding in plain sight all this time? Deep beneath an ordinary-looking piece of land lies the Bryan Site, a place where an entire community once lived, worked, and then vanished without leaving a single written record. Who were these people? Why did they choose this location? And what caused them to disappear? Every broken piece of pottery and every stone tool uncovers a new clue, but also creates even bigger questions. Stay with me as we uncover the forgotten secrets of the Bryan Site and explore a mystery that archaeologists are still trying to solve today. Bryan Site. Imagine standing in the middle of a quiet field in Missouri. The wind moves across the grass, birds fly overhead, and nothing around you seems unusual. To most people, it looks like just another piece of farmland. But beneath that peaceful ground could be the remains of a forgotten community that lived hundreds of years ago. They built homes, made tools, raised families, hunted animals, and traded with people from far away. Then, over time, they disappeared, leaving behind only small pieces of their lives buried under the soil. This is the mystery of the Bryan Site, one of Missouri's lesser-known ancient places, but still leaves archaeologists with more questions than answers. Unlike famous places that attract thousands of visitors every year, the Bryan Site has never become a household name. It does not have huge stone buildings or giant earth mounds that can be seen from miles away. Instead, its importance comes from what is hidden beneath the ground. Broken pieces of pottery, stone tools, animal bones, fire pits, and other objects have helped experts understand that this place was once full of life. Yet these discoveries also created a mystery that has never been completely solved. One of the biggest questions is simple. Who were the people who lived here? The people who stayed at the Bryan Site did not leave behind written records. There are no books, maps, or letters telling us their names or explaining why they chose this location. Everything we know comes from the objects they left behind. Archaeologists study every small piece carefully, hoping to build a picture of the past. But many parts of that picture are still missing. The location itself was not chosen by accident. Ancient communities often settled near rivers, streams, or areas where food was easy to find. Missouri offered forests filled with deer and turkey, rivers rich with fish, and fertile land where crops such as corn, beans, and squash could grow. Living close to these natural resources made survival much easier. The Bryan Site appears to have been one of these communities. Families likely built homes from wooden poles covered with bark or woven materials. Smoke from cooking fires would have filled the air each evening as meals were prepared. Children probably played nearby, while older family members repaired tools, shaped pottery, or prepared animal hides. Life was likely busy, simple, and closely connected to nature. But this peaceful picture leads to another mystery. How large was this settlement? Some experts believe it may have been a small village, occupied for only a short time. Others think it may have been part of a much larger network of settlements spread across central Missouri. Because only parts of the site have been studied, nobody knows its true size. There may still be hidden homes, storage pits, or burial areas waiting beneath the surface. Every time archaeologists uncover another section of the ground, they find clues that raise even more questions. Stone tools found at the site tell us that the people were skilled workers. They shaped sharp points for hunting and carefully made knives and scraping tools from local stone. These tools were not created quickly. Each one required patience and experience. A mistake could ruin hours of work. The pottery found at the Bryan Site is equally interesting. Different shapes and designs may show changes in culture over time or contact with neighboring communities. Some pieces look similar to pottery discovered at other ancient Missouri sites. Others appear slightly different, suggesting local traditions that archaeologists are still trying to understand. Trade is another mystery connected to the Bryan Site. Some objects found in Missouri archaeological sites came from places hundreds of miles away. Certain types of stone, shells from distant rivers or oceans, and rare minerals suggest that Native American communities traded over surprisingly long distances. If similar materials reached the Bryan Site, it would mean its people were connected to a much larger world than many imagine. Think about that for a moment. Without horses, trains, or cars, people still managed to exchange goods, ideas, and traditions across great distances. Rivers became natural highways, and generations of travelers built trade routes that connected villages throughout North America. But how important was the Bryan Site in these networks? That question remains unanswered. Some archaeologists believe it may have been a stopping place where travelers exchanged goods before continuing their journeys. Others think it was simply a farming community that occasionally received trade items from neighboring groups. Without more evidence, both ideas remain possible. Another mystery involves the time period of the settlement. The Bryan Site may have been occupied during different generations, with people returning again and again over many years. Layers beneath the ground can reveal this story. The deeper archaeologists dig, the older the remains become. Sometimes they discover several different periods of occupation stacked one above another. This creates another puzzle. Did the same community continue living there for centuries, adapting to changing conditions? Or did one group leave, only for another group to settle the same land years later? The answer is still uncertain. Daily life at the Bryan Site was likely shaped by the changing seasons. During spring and summer, families probably planted crops and gathered wild plants. Hunting remained important throughout the year, while autumn brought harvest time. Winters would have been more difficult, requiring stored food and careful planning. Nature could also become a powerful enemy. Floods might destroy crops. Long periods without rain could reduce harvests. Harsh winters could make hunting difficult. Disease may have spread through communities with little warning. Could one of these natural events explain why the settlement was eventually abandoned? It is certainly possible. Climate changes have affected civilizations throughout history. Even small shifts in rainfall or temperature can slowly force communities to move elsewhere. If nearby rivers changed their paths or farmland became less productive, families may have decided to search for better land. Conflict is another possible explanation. Many ancient communities lived peacefully with their neighbors, but competition over land, hunting grounds, or trade sometimes led to violence. Archaeologists occasionally discover signs of defensive structures or injuries on ancient skeletons that suggest conflict occurred. So far, there is no clear evidence showing that warfare caused the Bryan Site to be abandoned, but the possibility cannot be completely ruled out. There is also the chance that nothing dramatic happened at all. Perhaps the people simply moved. As populations changed, families often joined larger villages that offered better protection, stronger trade connections, or more fertile farmland. Entire communities could slowly disappear without any great disaster. Over generations, abandoned homes would collapse, forests would grow back, and nature would hide almost every sign that people had once lived there. That may be exactly what happened here. One of the greatest challenges facing archaeologists today is that time has not been kind to sites like Bryan. Unlike stone temples that survive for thousands of years, wooden homes eventually rot away. Rain washes away soil. Tree roots disturb ancient layers. Animals dig through buried remains. Every passing century removes another small piece of history. Modern farming has also changed parts of the landscape. Plowing fields can move or damage ancient artifacts. Construction projects may destroy sections before archaeologists have a chance to study them. In some cases, important information is lost forever. That is one reason why sites like Bryan are so valuable. Even a broken piece of pottery can reveal what people cooked. Burned seeds can show what crops they grew. Animal bones tell us what they hunted. Tiny stone flakes left behind while making tools can reveal where people worked and how they lived. Every object becomes part of a much larger story. Today, archaeologists use technology that earlier researchers could only dream about. Ground-penetrating radar can detect hidden features without digging. Soil analysis reveals old activity areas. Carbon dating provides better estimates of age. Even microscopic remains trapped inside pottery can tell researchers what ancient people once ate. Each new scientific method helps answer old questions. But surprisingly, every answer often creates several new mysteries. That is the fascinating part of archaeology. The Bryan Site reminds us that history is not always about kings, famous battles, or giant monuments. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from ordinary people whose names have been forgotten. Their daily lives helped shape the history of an entire region, even though we know very little about them today. When people visit Missouri, they often focus on well-known attractions, while places like the Bryan Site remain almost invisible. Yet, beneath its quiet ground lies evidence of generations who built homes, shared meals, celebrated traditions, and faced challenges that are still difficult to understand. There are both positive and negative sides to the site's condition today. On the positive side, the Bryan Site continues to be recognized by archaeologists as an important place for learning about Missouri's prehistoric past. Advances in archaeological science mean that future studies may reveal information that earlier researchers could never uncover. Protecting sites like this also helps preserve the history of Native American communities for future generations. On the negative side, much of the site remains only partly understood. Natural erosion, farming, development, and the simple passage of time have likely damaged or disturbed parts of the archaeological record. Because many ancient features are fragile, every year that passes without careful preservation increases the risk of losing valuable information forever. For me, the Bryan Site is a reminder that history does not have to be famous to be important. It may never have towering pyramids or massive stone walls, but its real value comes from the lives of ordinary people whose stories still wait beneath the soil. I believe the greatest mystery is not just why they disappeared, but how much of their story remains hidden because we have not yet uncovered it. Every careful excavation brings us a little closer, but it also reminds us that some mysteries deserve patience rather than quick answers. Today, the Bryan Site remains an archaeological location with many unanswered questions. It is not a major tourist destination, and much of its history is still buried underground. Researchers continue to study similar sites across Missouri to better understand the people who once lived there. While parts of its past have been revealed through archaeology, much of the Bryan Site's story remains hidden, making it one of Missouri's quiet but enduring ancient mysteries.